Everyone have a look. We'll go through a few of these topics first, quite a few of them. Okay, but we'll go through them first before you guys get started with the question. Okay, so the first type of questions will be simplify these expressions here. Okay, now Hannah, what do we need to pay attention to when you simplify something like that? What do we need to pay attention to?
Negative.
Negatives, that's right. So for example, -5, when you multiply that in, you need to make sure you multiply the -5. All right, so that will be -5. And then -5 times -5 will be positive 25k. Okay. Similarly, that -4, you need to make sure you times the whole -4 in, so that'll be -8k, and then -20. All right. How many pairs of like terms are there, Evelyn? How many pairs of like terms? Okay. Two. Yes, correct. Solina, give me the first pair of like terms.
25k take 8k.
Yes, correct. 25k take 8k. Alvina, give me the other one.
-5 -20.
Yes, -5 -20. Okay. So if you were to combine those, you will find one of the answers will be the correct one. If you notice the answer, right, it's either -17 or +17. Okay. So that's the idea. And the other questions are quite similar as well. So note that when you see the negative without anything, without any number, what does it mean? Negative, what's a number if it's nothing?
1.
1, yes, it will be -1. Okay, or you can think of it as the negative in front of the brackets. When you open that, okay, so this one here, that would just be -28 plus 2r. Now this negative, when you expand the brackets, it will flip the sign of every single term in here. So flip the sign of this and flip the sign of that, which means it will turn into +3r and then +5. Okay, so that's what it means by having a negative in front of the brackets. All right, so that's these questions here. Now, some of the questions you guys will have to deal with fractions. How do we add or subtract fractions? Solina, how do we add or subtract fractions?
You have to have the same denominator.
Very good, have the same denominator. Alvina, how do we make these two the same denominator? So -2/3 plus 5/6, how do we make them the same denominator?
You times the bottom by 3 and over by 3.
By 3, so that would be over 9, and then that would be 6.
No, like the other one.
The other one by 3?
6 times 3 and 5 times.
Yes, okay, I see what you were saying. So Alvina is saying that you times this one by 3. Yes, that's one way, and then you times this one by 6, right? Is that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
Right, so you get the same. Yes, that would be one way of doing it. However, there is a shorter way of doing this question. So note that 3 and 6, right? If you look at the multiples of 3 and 6, 3 would be 3, 6, 9, 12, and 6 would be 6, 12, 18. So actually the lowest multiple that is the same would be 6. So you can actually just get both of them to 6 and voila, this is already 6, so you don't actually need to do anything about it. And so the easier way is actually to times this by 2. Okay, if you times those two by 2, then you would get 4/6, which is then already a same common denominator. Does that make sense? Yeah? Any question, Evelyn, Solina? No? So yeah, so after that, you add them together. Note that the sign always comes with the number. So that would be -4 plus 5, which is, Hannah?
1.
1/6. And remember, it's 1/6p. Okay? Then you gotta combine the other two numbers as well. All right, so you gotta work with fractions. And some of them, you will need to work with decimals. How do we do something like this, where it's -0.07? How do we add or subtract decimal numbers? Evelyn, what's the main idea here? Add and
Not look at the decimal.
not quite. That's multiplication and division. Okay?
Oh yeah.
Addition and subtraction, you need to do something else first. Evelyn, what else did we do then? Do you remember?
No.
No? Solina?
No.
Alvina? Surely one of you know. Hannah?
What was the question again?
How do you combine these two decimal numbers?
Line up the decimal?
Line up the decimals. Yes,
yeah.
you line up the decimal the point, right? So 0.07 and 3.92. So okay, so now that we've lined them up, is it a subtraction or is it an addition for these two numbers to get the final answer? Is it subtraction or addition?
Subtraction?
Subtraction, why?
Actually, because actually, I don't know.
No, Solina?
Addition.
Wait, addition.
Addition, why?
I don't know, that's the addition sign there.
Okay, Alvina, what do you think? Addition or subtraction? Subtraction,
I
why?
don't know.
Because it's plus and minus. Okay,
Yeah.
plus and minus could be subtract 3.92. Alright, so yes, that's a good chain of thought. Hannah, subtraction or addition and why?
Addition.
Addition, why?
Two negatives.
That's right, two negatives. Okay, so yes, Alvina, you're correct. It should be a negative, but note that this is negative 0.07 and then minus 3.92. So two negatives will make it a more negative number. So you actually add them together. So that'll be 3.99 and then the answer will be a negative 3.99a. Okay, and then the other one is a term by itself. So it will just be that is the final answer. Okay, so watch out when you're dealing with tougher numbers, you might focus too much on a number and forgot that you're dealing with two negatives. So two negatives add up to be a more negative number. Okay, so watch out for those ones. Okay, yeah, so same with these ones here. Okay, so for these kinds of questions, right, which expressions are equivalent to that expression? And they ask you to choose all answers, which means it could be one, it could be two, or well, it can't be three because if it's none of the above, then it doesn't make sense to pick anything else, right? So either A or B, or A and B, or C. So then for these ones, you actually need to work out the main expression first, all right? So that would be 8p and then minus 9. All right, so let's see. Now the first one, 8p is correct, minus 9, no, that's wrong. It should be minus 9, so A is out of the question. Okay, and then B, when you expand that brackets, right, you see, you have to actually just work it through. So that'll be 3p and then negative 9, right? 3 times negative 3 is negative 9 plus 5p. So that would be 8p minus 9. Is that a correct answer? Yes, it is the correct answer. So B is the correct answer. You would choose B, which means C is wrong. Okay? So for this question, be very careful. You need to expand it. For example, you gotta expand this one, expand that one, expand this one, and see if these two questions A and B are going to be the same. If they're not correct, then you gotta pick C, none of the above, right? But we don't know. You gotta expand that and test it out. Okay, any question? No? Okay, moving on. Now we're going to a slightly harder question. Now this one is about interpreting a worded question. I'll go through a few examples for you guys. This is the first one. Chad bought a watch that normally cost W dollars. He used a 30% discount. The expression 0.7W describes the amount that he actually paid for the watch. And we can also say W minus 0.3W to represent the same quantity. Match each amount in the situation with the expression that represents it. So the amount the watch normally costs, well, we said normally costs W, so that would be W, right? The amount of the discount, because the discount is 30%. Now note that 30% is the same as 30 over 100, which is the same as 0.3. So this is percentage in different forms. Okay, so that would be 0.3 times the, because 30% of W is just 0.3 times W. All right, so this is the amount of the discount. And then the percent decrease of the discount, right, as a decimal. So percent decrease is actually 0.3 because it decreases by 30%. Does that make sense? Yeah. And then percent of the normal cost that Chad actually paid as a decimal will be 0.7 because he only paid 70%. Okay. Because for example, imagine the OG cost would be, let's say $100, right? The percent discount would be 30% and they ask for the decimal amount, which should be 0.3. Okay, and if it's discounted 30%, then it will be 70% left that he has to pay, and the decimal of that is 0.7. Okay, so that's the interpretation of a worded question like that. And this one will be the same. You just need to think about it and actually interpret the questions correctly. So actually, I'll skip that one. Now let's have a look at this one here. Jack had 3 bags of golf ball. 3 bags of golf balls with B balls in each bag. Then his friend gave him 6 more golf balls. Okay, so how many golf balls does Jack have now? So he said 3 bags, right? So that's not the number of golf balls, it's 3 bags, and each of them has B, which means in total that will be 3B, right? Then his friend gave him 6 more, right? So that will be in total. So 6 more means plus 6. So how many he has in total would be these 2 quantities added together. So that'll be 3B plus 6. Okay, so the question asks you to write your answer as an expression. So they don't actually, you can't work out the answer because they don't give you the number of balls in each bag. Right, so you have to write it in terms of the variable B. So similarly, this question here, 4 friends evenly divided up an n-slice pizza. Okay, there are 4 friends and the pizza has n slices. It could be 4, could be 6 slices, could be 8 slices. One of the friends ate 1 fewer slice than he received. So how many slices of pizza did Harris eat? Okay, this one's a tricky one. So there are n slices of pizza. When you divide that by 4, okay, so supposedly if it's an even number, when you divide it by 4 and everyone would n slices. So when you do n divided by 4 is how many slices each person eat, right? Does that make sense? Because n slices in total, 4 friends. So divided by 4, and then Harris ate 1 fewer than what he received. 1 fewer than that means you need to subtract 1 from, because this is how much Harris received, right? So this is the received amount. Received, and then this is how much he ate less than the amount received. So the answer would be n over 4 minus 1 as an expression. Okay, so these questions could be a little bit tricky. Again, you don't need to get 100%. Just 3 out of 4 or 6, 7 out of 7 is okay. You can make a mistake, it's okay. Alright, because these questions are quite tricky, these algebra ones. Now, in order to solve for these one-step equations, you got to work with decimal numbers. So the same idea, I'll just go through the main idea. There'll be 2 terms. Alright, 0.25a is one term and 0.5 is another term. You want to move any term that doesn't have the variable into the other side. So that would be 0.25a equals to 4.5. And what happens when you move it to the other side, Hannah?
The term, the sign.
The
opposite way.
Yes, the sign turns to the opposite sign. So plus here becomes minus 0.5 when you move a term over. Remember, terms and factors are different. Terms are separated by plus or minuses. Factors are what? Multiplied together. So these 2 are factors in this term. Yeah, so this one term, this whole thing is a term, and inside it there are 2 factors, 0.25 times a. So there are 2 factors in that one term. Okay, so factors are multiplied and terms are added or subtracted. So when you move the term over, it changes that. When you do the subtraction, that would be 4. So 0.25a equals 4. Right? Now a would be 4 divided by 0.25. How do we do this? How do we do this division with decimal?
Not look at the decimal?
You can, but there's an easier way. That would work, but there's an easier way. So Lina,
I don't know.
you sure?
Yeah.
Are you sure you've thought enough?
Long division. Short division.
Not short division either. Avina, any idea? No? Hannah?
Turn it to a fraction.
You turn into a fraction, yes. It is 4 divided by 0.25 as a fraction is what? 1 over 4, correct? And how do we divide a fraction? So Lina should know this one. How do we divide a fraction?
Change it into a times.
That's right, change it to times. And how do you change a fraction if you change a divide into a times?
4 over 1.
4 over 1. And what is this called? This is called the... Right, turn that into the...
Reciprocal.
Reciprocal, that's right, reciprocal. Okay, so the reciprocal is just you just flip the fraction around, right? 1 over 4 becomes 4 over 1. And that's how you deal with dividing by a fraction. You change that into multiplier of the reciprocal of the number. And once you've got to this point, how do we 4 times 4 over 1? Alvina, how do we do 4 times 4 over 1?
4 times 4.
Yes, you do 4 times 4, very good. So when you have a whole number times by a fraction, you only times the whole number to the top of the fraction, okay? Which is 16 over 1. Wow, then that would be 16. Okay, or you can just go 4 over 1 is just 4, so 4 times 4 is 16. All right, that's another way of doing this one. Now that brings me to the next question here. Solve for D. This is another one where you will need to work with fractions. So I'll take this term, move out to the other side. So that'll be 3 over 2 plus 1 over 2 equals 5D, right? And 3 over 2 plus 1 over 2 is 4 over 2. What's 4 over 2?
2.
Just 2, that's right. 2 equals 5D, and how do we continue? Anyone?
You divide 5.
You divide by 5 on both sides, that's right. Okay, so the 5 here will cancel off. You get D equals to 2 over 5. So D equals 2 over 5 or 2 over 5 equals D is the same thing. So yeah, so the answer to this one is just 2 over 5 is what you put into CAD. All right, any question? No? Yeah, all good? So yeah, this one you just got to deal with fraction. Just remember when you see numbers like this one, 2.5, you convert that to a fraction. How do we convert 2.5 into a fraction? Anyone? No idea? You change that into 25 over what number? So 2.5 is the same as 25 over what number?
10.
10, yes. How do you get 10?
Because the decimal is like, it's not like,
Okay.
I don't know.
The answer is because there is one decimal.
Yeah, 1 decimal.
Right? There's one decimal digit, and that literally corresponds to how many zeros. Right? So when you get to this point, you might want to simplify that first. So 25 over 10, you divide top and bottom by 5, would be 5 over 2. Okay? So now you may or may not want to convert to a fraction first, because for example, in this case, I would actually take this one over here, and I go 4 subtract 2.5. Now, if you prefer doing decimal subtraction, then you can work it out. Otherwise, you change that to 5 over 2. So turn that into 5 over 2 and turn this one to 4 over 1, and then you do the subtraction. Okay, so let's just say we were to do the subtraction here. So negative 3b equals to that, subtract that, make the denominator the same. So Avina, what would I multiply each of this by in order to get the same denominator? What would I multiply the top and the bottom of this fraction by in order to get the same denominator as this one?
2.
By 2, yes. See, you don't actually need to multiply the other one, right? Because you can get 2 straight away, the same denominator. So that would be 2, and the top would be 8 over 2. Subtract that would be 3 over 2. So negative 3b equals 3 over 2. How do we continue? How do we find b?
Divide.
By?
Negative 3.
Divide by negative 3. That's right. How do we do fraction division?
You times it.
By?
Like, negative 3?
Mm.
I mean 3?
No.
No. The reciprocal.
The reciprocal of negative 3. What's the reciprocal of negative 3? Any guesses?
1 over negative 3.
1 over negative 3, right? If it's a whole number, it's just 1 over that number. So not 1 over negative 3. And then you can, before you multiply that, you can see that this is negative 3, right? So when you simplify that, that becomes negative 1. So the answer is b equals to 1 over negative 2, which also is written as negative 1 over 2. You can bring the negative out of the fraction. Okay? That makes sense?
Yeah.
So Lina, all good? Yeah? So yeah, so that's one of the trickier parts of today's content, like all the decimals and fractions. I left these topics until now, so you guys get to practice all of these decimal and fraction stuff right now. So when you see any decimal and fraction at schoolwork, it's not going to be a problem. Okay, this one here, next one. A daycare charges a base fee of $3 plus $0.5 per minute for late pickups. Alvin had to pay $10.5 for a late pickup. They use he uses the equation that to represent the situation. So what does the variable a represent in the equation here? Right, let's see, 10.5 for a late pickup, so that's the total amount, right? And then let's see, so the base fee of $3 means you add the base fee to the total, to like what he had to pay. Now it is $0.5 per minute for the late pickup, and then look at the equation, you get 0.50 times A. So what do you guys think A is? A, B, or C? Would it be A, B, or C in this case?
A.
A, why?
Because it represents the number of minutes, he was saying.
Yes, because 0.50 times the number of minutes is part of how much you have to pay, right? And so the answer would be A, the number of minutes of Abin's late pickup. Okay, so okay, that's not bad, not bad. I'll leave you guys to try out these questions. Yeah, this question is going to be a little bit trickier. Okay, writing the equations here. Now, this one, the wording could be a little bit confusing. I'll remind you guys what the keywords are. Is means what? Is in the
Addition. Oh wait.
equal. Yes. So you start with, so that's equal, right? And then 4 times means multiplication. Difference means minus. Now note that difference between Sarah's age A and 44. This whole statement means the difference between A and 44, and Sarah is older than 44. That means it's A minus 44. That's the interpretation of the difference between Sarah's age and 44. Okay, and then 4 times that, so you would write it as 64 is, which is equal 4 times that thing. So 4 times A minus 44. Is that right? That's wrong.
Oh.
It's missing something important.
Brackets.
Brackets around
A and 44.
A and 44. That's right. You need to do this subtraction first, right? Take the difference and then you multiply that by 4. Okay, so be very careful when they give you sum or difference. Normally, sometimes you need to group into the brackets if you're multiplying that with like another factor. So you see in this expression, 4 is a factor and this whole thing is a factor. They multiply together, right? You can't break it up, because if you write 4 times A minus 44, this means that together, this is a term. It doesn't make sense, right? You do 4 times A first and then you subtract 44. That doesn't make sense. Okay, so you actually have to take the difference and then you times it by 4. That is a better answer. So yeah, so you gotta get this equation and then you solve it. Okay, I won't go through the question because I think you guys should be able to do that. Okay, testing for inequalities. What is this symbol? Less than or more than?
More than.
More than is wrong. This is less than. How do we read this? Oh, this is even this is actually less than or equal to.
Oh.
Why is it the equal to? Well, the reason is because of that line there. Okay, the line at the bottom is, it could be equal to, which means that whatever the Q value is that gets it equals to 1 is also satisfying the equation. Okay, so you guys have all learned inequalities before, right? Less than, more than. Yeah. Now, how do I read this? Is forget whatever you guys learned in primary school. Okay, this is how I prefer to read it, because normally we read left to right, right? So when you look at this symbol here, right, look at that symbol there, from left to right, what do you first see? If you want to draw the line here, what do you first see? You see a point, right? And then when you keep going, it becomes bigger, right? So you see smaller becomes bigger. So that means on the left is less than what's on the right. Okay, because the left is smaller than the right. Yeah, so the left hand side, because the left hand side is smaller than the right hand side, it's the less than symbol, because when you always read left to right. Okay, similarly, when you get a symbol like that, right, reading left to right, that's greater than the left. So you read whatever, this is A, if you have to here, it will be A is greater than 6, for example. That's how you read that, A greater than 6. Okay, or A less than 10. Okay, yeah. So remember, you always read left to right in this question, and that's why you read the symbol less than the other one. Okay, or if it's reversed, then it'll be greater than this one. Okay, so you use that one. It will be a bit easier. Okay, so if we were to substitute like the values in here, let's see which value will satisfy the following inequality. So if you take 2, let's say you take 0, 3 times 0 would be equals to 0, right? And then you'd get 6 minus 0 less than equals 1. So that would be 6 less than equals 1. Is that right? No, that's not right. Therefore, A is wrong. So when you test B and C, you see that one of them is correct. So I'll show you that if you were to test C, that would be 6 minus 3 times 2 less than equals 1, right? Let's see. Or you can write it this way, less than equals 1. So 6 minus 6 less than equals 1, 0 less than equals 1. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, 0 is less than equals 1, right? So yes, that's the correct answer. C is the correct answer. Okay, you gotta test B to see if it's correct or not. If it's correct, you gotta select it because you have to choose all answers that apply. So yeah, so as I said, I'm going through quite a lot of stuff. Right, let's see if it will make sense. Okay, there is another thing you guys need to remember when you're dealing with inequalities. When you have 5, actually no, I'll skip that. Okay, I'll skip that. The other stuff for inequalities, let's say in this one here, when you, in order to get rid of the divide by 25, you would do what? What would you do? To isolate the x, you want x is just more than something. Multiply. Yes, you would multiply both sides by 25. Okay, and then the 25 left and on the left will cancel out, so that would just be x. And then when you do 5 times 25, the answer would be 125. So x must be more than 125. Okay, to satisfy this inequality here. One last thing about inequality is if you have, let's say negative 2x less than 4, right? Whenever you multiply or divide by a negative number, the sign flips around. So in this case, if you were to divide by 2, right, you would write this one and divide by 2, right? Yeah? Make sense so far? The sign flips around. So whenever you multiply or divide by a negative number in an inequality, the sign will have to change. Alright? Just remember that. If you make a mistake later, that might be because of this reason here. Right? In inequality. So gotta watch out for that one. So that's why this one is a perfect example of that. So I'll show you this one here. If I were to work this one out, right, I move the 7 term to the other side. So that would be negative 2x less than 23 minus 7. So when you're moving terms, it doesn't change anything, right? Because moving terms as opposed to dividing or multiplying by a negative number. Okay, so that'll be negative 2x less than 23 minus 7 is for 16. Okay, now note that we need to divide by negative 2. And when you divide by a negative number, the sign has to change around. Okay, so then that would get you x is more than negative 8. Now, which one represents more than negative 8? So without looking at the answer, let's see what it looks like. Let's say this is negative 8, right? More than that means and it's not including, right? If it's equal to, then it will be a solid dot, but it's more than, so it's a hollow dot. Have you guys learned this before? No? Okay. All right, that's fine. So I'll just show you guys now. If it's more than negative 8, means you have a dot on negative 8 and you draw the arrow here. All right, that means more than negative 8. Does that make sense? Because this one goes to infinity, right? It keeps going. If you have something like, let's say I'll show you a different expression here. Let's say x is less than or equal to negative 7. Okay? That means, let's say if you have negative 7 here, right, I would represent that by less than, so the arrow must go this way, right, less than negative 7. But because it can be equal to negative 7, I will put a solid dot here as opposed to the hollow dot from before. Okay? So the red one represents x more than negative 8. The blue one represents x less than or equal to negative 7. Right? How do you think I would represent something like x is equal to negative 6? Let's say negative 6 is here. How would I represent that when it's equal to? What's your guess? Any guess? Hannah?
Hollow dot. Wait. Yeah, hollow dot.
Hollow dot. That's negative 6. Okay, Evelyn, what do you think? Is that right? If not, how would you change it?
Would you go point? Wait, I don't know.
No, no? Okay, so Lina. Would it be a hollow dot and negative 6? If not, then what else would it be?
I'll do the colored in dot
Okay, colored in dot, why?
because it's equal to.
Yes, that's the right answer.
Oh.
Okay, the colored in dot will be equals to negative 6. Because remember,
Oh.
if it could be equals to negative 7, it's a colored in, right?
Oh,
It's a filled dot. And when it cannot be equal to, this is pure strictly greater than negative 8. Right? Strictly greater is a hollow. So think of it this way, fill means equal to. Okay, so that's something that is probably new to you guys about inequalities. And this expression actually you will see that quite a lot in higher grades, like the arrows and stuff like that. I use that quite often. Okay, so greater than negative 8, well, obviously it will be this one here, right? Because hollow dot at negative 8 and the arrow points to the right hand side. So yeah, so the answer will be D. Alright, so that's inequalities. Have you guys learned about square roots and cube roots?
Yeah.
Yeah? Yeah? Avina? Yeah? Square root of 25 equals
5.
5. Any question? No? What cube root of what number equals 2?
8.
Yes, the cube root of 8 equals 2. Why, Solina?
Because you
Because 8 is equal to
cube.
is equals to 2 cube, or 2 times 2 times 2, right? That would be 4 times 2 is 8. Because 2 cube equals 8, so that's why the cube root of 8 equals to 2. So the cube root is a number that when you cube that, you will get what's in the cube root. Okay, so that's what square root and cube root is. All right, just more questions on that. Now, there's one thing though. If you have k squared equals 225. Now, let me tell you one thing. If 15 squared equals 225. Okay, so what are the possible values of k? Well, of course, it will be 15. But anything else? Is there anything else that k could also potentially be?
Negative 15.
Negative 15? Why?
Actually, no. Actually, I don't know.
No, so only 15?
I don't know.
Negative 15 is also part of the answer.
Oh, okay.
But why?
Because
What is negative 15 everything squared?
positive 225.
It is also positive 225.
Oh, yeah.
Why? Because, okay, let me use a simpler example. Negative 3 squared, right? This is the same as negative 3 times negative 3. Two negatives, when you multiply, it will cancel into a positive. And the answer would just be positive 9. Right? And this would be the same as when you go 3 squared, and that would be 9. That's why when you have something like x squared equals to 9, you actually write your answer as x equals to plus minus square root of 9. Which means that it could be plus or minus 3. Okay, so x equals to plus or minus 3 means that x could be 3 or x could be negative 3. Because when you square both of them, when you square any number, negative or positive, you get the same answer. And that's why it could be either negative or a positive number. So there are two answers. So that's why in this one, they ask you to choose all answers that apply. So the answers would be C or D. Well, C and D. Okay? Yeah. Okay, we're getting close to the end of all my explanations, and you can get started soon. But next one is, how do we expand the brackets of the exponent here? How do we expand that? Any idea? What is the expansion of, let's say, a times b, everything squared? Well, you actually just distribute the power in, so that'll be a squared times b squared. Okay, which means this will be equals to what? Ignore that for now. So this one will be equals to 3 squared, everything power 3 times by 5 cubed, right? Yeah? Now, what is 3 squared, everything to the power 3? What is this thing?
3 to the power 6.
Yes, it is 3 to the power 6. So note that when you have power in the power, let's say a to the power 2, everything to the power 5 would be a to the power 2 times 5. Okay, when you have power in the power, you multiply the two powers together. So that's why this would be 3 to the power 2 times 3, which is 3 to the power 6. So you can just check the answer here, right? 3 power 6, 5 power 3, the answer is B. Okay, just remember that, right? And also it will be the same when you have a fraction as well. If you have, let's say if you have 3 or a over b, everything power 3, for example. This is the same as a cube over b cube. Right? You can think of it as distributing the power to each part of the top and the bottom of the fraction. Right? So it'll just be a cube over b cube. Okay? So fractions and products is the same thing when you distribute the power in. Okay, so these questions would be a bit tricky. Choose 3 answers. Select 3 expressions that are equivalent to 4 power 10. So you gotta just work this one out, work this one out, work this one out, work all of them out and see which one is 4 power 10. But if you know the rules well, you can see that the top one, 5 times 2, this is 4 power 10. That's the first answer. Okay, this one is 10 power 4. That's not the same, so that's not right. When you do division of powers, what do you do with the indices? When you divide them, this will be equals to what? 4 power 20 minus 10. Okay, when you divide powers, you take the top index, you subtract the bottom one. So this one is also 4 power 10. So C is also the correct answer. Okay, and then this one here, 4 power 2 times 4 power 5 is equals to 4 power. Anyone? 7. Yes, you're adding up the power. Okay, so that's not quite right, which means by the process of elimination, E is correct. But why is E correct? Now, if you have to work this one out, you distribute the power in first, right? That would be 4 squared, everything power 2 times 4 cubed, everything power 2. But remember, power in the power means you multiply them, or which means that you can just simply see this one as 2 times the 2 times the 2 there. So that would be 4 power 4 times 4 power 6. That's it. Which means that would be 4 to the power 4 plus 6, which is 10. So that's why that's also a correct answer.
That's easy.
Easy, right? Okay. So just remember, power in the power means you multiply, right? And if it's brackets and there are 2 products, you just multiply them to each of the power in the brackets. That's it. All right. It's pretty easy when you do enough of these things. Same thing here. Remember I said earlier, if you have a fraction, it's just distribute the power into each of the power in the fraction, right? And power in the power means you multiply. So that'll be 2 to the power 20 over x to the power 8. Make sense? Yeah? No questions?
No.
No? Okay. So yeah, so that's how you deal with power in the power, right? And then I think a few last things. One last thing, negative exponents. So negative exponents is essentially you just need to change that into a positive exponent when you turn it around. So for example, a to the power minus 2, this is the same as 1 over a squared. Okay, so that's what negative exponent means. Negative exponent just means when you move it to the other side of the fraction, it turns into a positive exponent. So 1 over 2 power 8 equals what? Well, when you look at the expressions here, 2 to the power negative 8, right, is 1 over 2 power 8. Okay, so negative exponent, negative power just means 1 over the positive power. So for example, what's 2 power negative 2? 2 power negative 2 is 1 over 2 squared, which is 1 over 4. Right, so just remember, negative exponent is 1 over the positive version. Okay, similarly, if you have a okay, let's see the other kind of question. So this is the same. Okay, now this question, last question here, 9 times 10 power 7 is how many times as large as this one? How many times as large as? This means that so they're saying, okay, 9 times 10 power 7 is how many times by 3 times 10 power 3. So you just need to find something that when you multiply 3 times 10 to the power 3 by, you get 9 times 10 power 7. So first you can analyze, okay, 3, how do you get 9 from 3? You times it by 3. So this question mark would be, you start, 3 will be part of it, right? Because 3 times 3 is 9. How do you get 10 power 7 from 10 power 3? We're missing 10 to what power? Right, because we're finding something, right? When you multiply with these two, you will get this expression here. Okay, so we know 3 times 3 is 9. Now we've got to deal with the 10 to the power something. So 10 to the power 7 and 10 to the power 3. All right, what's the power here so that you make the right hand side equal to the left hand side? What's the power? Surely one of you would get the right answer.
Wait, what was it again?
So, okay, I'll write it this way. 9 times 10 power 7 is equal to something, and we found out that there must be, part of that must be 3, and I'll tell you guys that the other one will be 10 to the power something. What is that something to make the two expressions equal?
4.
4, yes. Because when you have 10 power 4 times 10 power 3, the answer is 10 power 7.
Okay.
So the thing that we needed to find is 3 times 10 power 4, which is the answer A. Okay, so this is the last question for today. It's going to be one of the more challenging ones when you get to it. All right, so to get to it, remember, you don't need to get 100. You just need to, you can make one mistake per question. That's okay. All right, let's get to it.
Can I get a pencil?
Yes.
Thank you.
Let me quickly make a full.
I wanted to fall asleep. I just kept nodding. I kept nodding.
5:16. 45 minutes.
So tired.
Me too. I would have
Oh, good, strength hold.